Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Cruisers Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I am Derek. Alex, it's great to see you, especially on the heels of last week's episode, which was pretty popular. A lot of people like sea days. I knew that you and I did, but I didn't realize everyone who watches
Yeah,
this says, yeah, I kind of like this too.
I think sea days are their favorite days too. But you know what comes in a very close second
What's that?
is port days.
Yes.
I asked on my Facebook, I think it was last week, I said, what is most important to you when booking a cruise? And I figured I would get a lot of, whatever's cheapest and whatever's
Yep.
closest to my, house. And a lot of it was ports. I want to go to ports I've never been to. And I would love to kind of dig deep, dive deep into this because I think you were talking on one of your episodes on Island Time. These Excel class ships, they cannot go to a lot of the ports that we used to go to when ships were a lot smaller. So we might want to challenge our listeners a little bit to, instead of saying, I want to go on the Carnival Jubilee and just go to the same ports every single time, maybe try a different ship and go to some ports that you've never been to.
You're right. That's a great call out. One thing that you and I talk about frequently is that you can really visit the entire world via cruise ship if you want to. You can fly to places if you want, but you and I, if you put together our cruising experience, we've been around the world: Caribbean, Bahamas, Alaska, Europe, Istanbul, which is you're getting into Asia cruising there.
So cool.
And it's you really can cruise around the world, but like you said, based on where you want to go, you need to look at the size of ship that can make it to some of these places and what cruise line, what cruise operator operates those size of ships. And so that's a good call out to look at what cruise ship am I taking? Because sometimes, especially with today's marketing and branding and commercials and emails, these cruise lines are marketing their newest, largest ships that have all the bells and whistles. And we want to cruise on those, but we have to remember sometimes if you want to go to some of those remote places, if you want to go to some of those countries who maybe don't have the infrastructure, they haven't dredged down and they can't host a big ship, that smaller ships may be the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to ask you, and I think I know the answer to this. We're hearing a lot of, oh, Carnival Corporation, they're going to be building X amount of ships. Royal Caribbean's going to be building X amount of ships. But also in the news, we're hearing Carnival Corporation is building its private island that is exclusive to Carnival. Royal Caribbean, they've got their island. MSC, Disney, Princess, they all have these private islands. And I wanted to ask you, is it because they're building these big ships and they're just able to accommodate that? Plus, it's more money for the cruise line to go to their own private island.
Yep.
But I want to ask, do you think that's why? It's because we may not be able to go to Grand Cayman on the Carnival Jubilee, but we can certainly go to Celebration Key.
Yep. You've called it out, really. I listed a couple of reasons there. These private islands, they're growing in popularity. One thing, though, that we're seeing is that cruise lines post-pandemic, and now that they're raking in the money, they're investing in these private islands. Royal Caribbean's done a great job at Perfect Day. They continue to invest there. Carnival Cruise Line, of course, building Celebration Key, and it is going to be no joke. Whenever they announced it, I thought there's no way it rivals Royal Caribbean's Perfect Day at Coco Cay. The renderings and the different zones that the portals they continue to come out with are remarkable. And one reason why they're doing it, Alex just called it out. These ships, the large ships, they can't go to some of these places. The ports are limited. Like you said, Grand Cayman from Galveston used to be a staple. You could go to
Mm-hmm.
Grand Cayman. You can pick one of the two or three ships there in Galveston and go to Grand Cayman every week. Now it's like you're lucky to find it once every 4, 6, 8 weeks. There's an
Yeah.
itinerary that goes to Grand Cayman. Of course, with the Jubilee, it doesn't. But that is a reason why, Alex, why they're building these private islands. Of course, money comes in there too, because if they're at their private island, then of course you pay for the excursion that's there. And Carnival and Royal Caribbean, whoever owns the island, is running the shore excursion too, so they're making money as well. But these private islands are popping up; they are being invested in, and one reason why is because there's not enough ports to visit.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and I just thought about this, and I think I would actually enjoy this. What would you be interested in? Just going to say it. Carnival Jubilee, leaving from Galveston and going to Celebration Key. It might take, I think it's probably one sea day. Would
Yep.
you be interested in going and staying, 2 or 3 days at Celebration Key and then just coming straight back? That way the ship doesn't have to leave,
Yep.
saves on fuel, and
Right.
you'll have an opportunity to see a lot of these different zones. Because for me, if I'm going to Celebration Key or Royal Caribbean's Island, I want to probably just lay at the beach. But I'm
Yep.
going to be upset because I didn't get a chance to go to the water park. But if I spend a couple of days there, I'll just do the water park tomorrow. Would you guys be interested in that, especially with the kids?
Yeah, yeah, definitely would, and I really think that's where we're headed in the years ahead. These cruise lines are building the islands, they're investing in them, and then I think, of course, itineraries have to be released years in advance. Right now, you can book a cruise through spring of 2026. The rest of 2026 will be available in October for all cruise lines. It's a race to get those out, by the way. The cruise lines want to get those out
Oh
so
yeah,
fast because the first one to get it out, the first one probably is going to have those bookings where if you're a Royal and a Carnival cruiser and a Norwegian cruiser, but all of a sudden Royal
yep,
comes out with their 2026 sailings first, you're probably booking those and not
yeah,
waiting on the others. So,
yeah.
um, we would love some overnight stays, and one cruise line that we're seeing do that is MSC. MSC has
Huh.
their private island, and you're seeing them have an overnight stay at their private island. Like you said, fuel consumption is not as much, and longer days at ports. Cruise lines absolutely love to provide the longest time that they can at ports. And cruise lines are bashed about this. They are, because they have to stay on a schedule to make sure that we get from point A to point B on a timely manner, and that we get back to our U.S. home port so the next
Hmm.
cruise can take place. But cruise lines, they really do everything they can do to keep you off the ship for as long as they can for multiple reasons. One, they know that you like to visit ports of call. That's one reason why you've booked your cruise, so you can go experience culture and experience adventure. And secondly, if you are off the ship, they're not feeding you.
Right.
They're not giving you the drinks. They're not. It costs them less the more that you are off the ship. And so, if we start to see an increase in number of overnight stays at private islands, you might get there at 7 a.m. and the back on board might be 10 p.m. Let's say that there's drink service, and there's the bathroom facilities are open, and there's food service until 10 p.m. Then you've got to come back on board and go to the casino, grab a drink, maybe go to bed. You wake up the next day, you get off the ship again, and a lot of those experiences off the ship, they cost money, and so you're not using the free stuff on board
Right.
plus the fuel. Cruise lines are maximizing their profits.
Absolutely. And, I'm actually been doing some research on a different kind of cruising. Something I want to do in probably 2027. And I know itineraries are not out yet, but I'm looking at just what's available right now. And I really want to do a European river cruise.
Yeah,
I and I've been looking at the itineraries for those, and sometimes they'll spend a couple of nights at the same place. And they do that so if you want to travel far inland, get an Airbnb and just experience the country that you're in, you don't have to rush back to the riverboat, at a certain time. I think that's something I might want to try out in 2027. They're definitely expensive, so I'm going to have to start saving now. I
yeah,
mean, $4 or $5,000. Well, that's actually probably a cheaper one because I'd
yeah,
probably want to do 2 weeks. But man, they really are pricey. And I've got family members that have got 800 or 900 days at sea
yeah,
cruising, and they got into the riverboat scene a couple of years ago, and they're like, "There's there's no other way I'd want to cruise." But they're also in their 80s,
yeah,
so how do you think you would like a river cruise? There's no
yeah,
casino,
yeah,
there's no big water slides,
yeah,
but what's cool is if you get a balcony. I mean, you could almost reach over and touch the water, which I
yeah.
think is so cool. It's almost like a cove balcony on Dream class ships.
It is. And river cruising is growing in popularity, really. And some of those smaller companies are investing and trying to, of course, build ships just like cruise lines are. And it's really because it's a theme of the show, the ports of call, places that you visit that a cruise ship never, ever will be able to visit.
Yep.
Um, and some of these, and let me point out too, some of these river cruises, the ships are larger than what you would think. Okay, you're not sitting there on a fishing boat. Okay,
Yeah, you're
you've
not
got
on a pontoon.
amenities. Yeah, you've got crew members that are taking care of you just like on a cruise ship, but you're visiting some exotic locations. And I think that river cruising will continue to grow. I think the price will come down. Maybe not by 2027, but the price I think will come down because there's new vessels being built. But let me point this out as well. Cruising, it's on the rise anyway. European cruising is on the rise. It's crazy to look at. Sometime look at Cruise Mapper. Go to Cruise Mapper's website, and you can see a map of cruise ships in Europe, and you can't even really see the continent of Europe because there are little triangles everywhere on where
Yep.
these ships are. One cruise line that I'll call out if you're interested in cruising in Europe, especially the Greek islands, which is for some people that's the pinnacle. Amanda and I just got
I'm
back from
interested.
Princess. Here's a piece of advice I would give you that I think they do a terrible job of marketing it. Places like Mykonos. We just went to the island of Mykonos, which is unreal. We did a tour of the island. The cheapest Airbnb for almost almost all year. There's a down season for a few months, but the cheapest Airbnb is $10,000 a night. I'm not ever going to stay there. I'm never staying
Whoa.
there on the island.
No.
Okay,
No.
I can't do that. I can't do it. And
No.
like Kevin Hart was there. It was his birthday. He's out. I mean, at his Airbnb, literally waving as we go by. And the Kardashians were there. We were there. All the famous people are there. But here's what
That's why it's
Virgin.
probably so expensive, is
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they go there
Oh, that's where
and
they go. Yeah, Virgin Voyages is doing a remarkable job. For instance, when we were in Mykonos, I was looking at. I saw the resilient lady there, and I'm looking at her itinerary, and they stayed the night. You could visit
oh wow.
Mykonos, and the beaches are like it's like stupid. The pictures and stuff, and the beaches like it's crazy. It's top of the top. But then you enjoy your day. You go back to the ship. You stay on the ship, not in the $10,000 Airbnb. You stay on the ship, and then
You get to stay in
you
a $1 billion
yeah,
Airbnb.
exactly. You have the best accommodation on the island, just no one knows it. And then the next day, you get to get back off. But they do that in Mykonos. They do that in Santorini. Of course, Santorini is like the one that people go crazy about. All the white houses, the blue
Oh
dome, you
yeah.
know. But they do that there too. And Santorini is probably more expensive than Mykonos to stay per night if you stay on the island. But if you're looking at visiting some of these islands, these ports of call, think outside the box. Does Carnival sell in Europe? Of course they do. Does Royal? Yes. Norwegian? Yeah, they have several ships. MSC? Yeah, that's where they started. Think outside the box a little bit. Where if you're truly going to cruise for the ports of call, you can get there other ways. And this is where I think it becomes important. You people watching this know a lot about cruising. They're interested in cruising. That's why they're watching this. Find someone though that knows something about world cruising. Reach out to Alex or I. I'm not necessarily going to push travel advisors, even though I am one. But some of these small nuggets people don't know. Some people would love to visit Greece, but they had no clue Virgin Voyages is the way to go if you want overnight stays. And Virgin doesn't market that like they should. And so my point is, there's a lot of places to visit. There's ways to do it efficiently, where you're not spending $10,000 a night visiting one of the craziest, wildest, prettiest
Yeah.
islands in the world.
I think you really make a fantastic point. And if I were to ask anybody on my Facebook, what's your preferred cruise line? They're going to say Carnival, Royal, Princess. I
Yeah,
feel like people don't really look outside the box like you were just talking about.
yeah,
And if you want to go to these places in Greece and all over Europe, don't be afraid to look at other cruise lines. I
yeah,
know, just know off the bat, you're going to spend a little bit more on your vacation if you live in the United States and you go on a cruise out of Europe.
Yeah,
Just know that beforehand. If it's the same price to go out of Florida, that's great, but you're going to have to pay for airfare to get over to Europe. And
yeah,
honestly, I've talked to Derek offline about this. They they fly very cheap to Europe,
we do. We do.
and he is your guy to go to for all of that stuff. Best cruise line, best itinerary. Derek and Amanda will get you booked on your cruise to Europe. But I feel like people are afraid to branch out a little bit. I am 100% one of them. I am so comfortable with going on Carnival. Um, but like I said, next year and the year after, I'm branching out. I'm so close to Diamond on Carnival. Once I hit Diamond, sorry, Carnival, I am going to check out your sister ships and your sister companies.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with it, especially visiting ports of call. Reach out. A lot of people are scared of language barriers and things like that. Know that if you cruise out of Europe, you're going to have an international. You're going to have an international ship. Our ship, our cruise on the Sun Princess, 50% of people were from the United States. The other 50% were from like 80 other countries in the world. But the announcements are in English. The menus are in English. Crew members know English. So don't let that hold you back, especially when it comes to visiting some of these places that you've got to get to Europe to visit. You're not gonna visit them cruising from Long Beach or from Charleston or New York City. So
Right.
it's interesting. It's interesting. It really is. I want to call out a few things too, Alex. We're talking about ports. We talked about ships. Ships matter when looking at which ports to get to, but maybe just some port day advice. No matter if you're pulling up to Grand Cayman or you're pulling up to Santorini or there's Athens, Greece, whatever it is. Some port day tips, Alex, that you and I kind of look at. I'll share a couple from the beginning. Number one, as you get off the ship. Be sure you want to limit what you're taking off the ship. Let's be honest. Backpacks are
Yeah.
heavy. I have to carry that backpack. I hate carrying the backpack. It gets too heavy. But
Yep.
be sure to include some essentials, of course. One, identification. Don't take your passport
Yes.
off. Take a picture of it. Put a copy in there. Of course, you have your phone. I take my phone just in case. Usually, I'm connected to the local tower because I have an international plan. But don't take your original travel documents. There's nowhere really in the world that they require that. Cruise lines will take care if there's any special checks before you get off the ship. You don't have to take your official passport. Leave it in your cabin. Number two, take any medicine that you have with you. Even if you think I'll be back on board before 2 o'clock, I'll keep my 2 o'clock pill in the cabin.
Yeah.
Take it with you just in case. You may be having fun. You may have an incident. It's tough to get back to the ship. There may be a line to get back to the ship. And take also just general other medicines. Make sure you have your sunscreen. Make sure you have maybe Tylenol or something for a headache in case someone gets a headache. And take as much as you can, even though it will weigh you down. Take a drink. Amanda and I, we usually have Cheers package or whatever alcohol package, with whatever cruise line we're selling. We'll order extra Gatorades or waters the day before. We keep them in our refrigerator in our cabin, where when we're about to get off the ship, all of a sudden, okay, there's 3 Gatorades and 2 waters in there. Throw them in the bag. That way
Hmm.
you've got something to drink and take with you. So pack your backpack, pack your bag. I know you want to limit it, but pack some of those essentials just in case you need those as you get off the ship.
Definitely. I am actually really excited. If you ask me, other than cruising, what is your addiction? And I'll tell you what my addiction is I have so many backpacks and duffel bags, and I just bought a really cool $20 backpack from Target, and it's got so many, different pouches and, things I can put stuff
Yeah,
in. And, when I get off the ship, I take everything that you just talked about. I always take a water. I love drinking liquid IV. It just kind of gives you
yeah,
all the electrolytes because when you're in the Caribbean or anywhere hot, you're just gonna you don't even have to do anything but stand there and you're gonna just sweat and lose a lot of electrolytes and things like that. So I always bring that. But I want to make sure I have a bag big enough for my drone because I love shooting drone content. If I'm going to a beach resort, whether it be through Resort for a Day or something through Carnival or Mr. Sancho's, always go to their website and check to see if beach towels are provided.
Yeah.
Because, I love a Carnival beach towel, but if you've got a family of four and you roll them up and you fold them and you do everything you can, that's going to fill up one entire backpack. So just double check before you go if beach towels are provided because that'll save you a ton of bulky room in your bag. But I will also bring a snack. And when I say snack, I want to preface this. I know in Cozumel, when you get off the ship, there's going to be dogs there.
Yeah.
And those are not necessarily drug sniffing dogs. Those dogs are sniffing for specific items. And those items are going to be anything fruit related. I know in the buffet on cruise ships, they always have unpeeled bananas and apples and things like that. Now, when I say snack, I'm not talking about a fruit salad.
Yeah.
Keep that in your cabin, but like granola bars, things with, protein and things like that, because when you're out there at a beach day and it may not be all inclusive and you're drinking and not having enough water, those snacks and that water from the ship is going to really, really come in handy.
Yeah, it really will. And I'll add kind of to that one thing that I see a lot, and I hear from my clients. I'll reach out, cruise is over. Hey, how was your cruise? Oh, it was great till we got to Cozumel. Half of us woke up early. We got breakfast. Half of us were tired from the night before. We said we were going to meet at 9 o'clock. The people who ate breakfast showed up at 8:15 and 8. The ones that didn't eat showed up at 9. We got off the ship, and so, eventually got so hot and dizzy that, we had to sit down for a minute, and then we decided, they need to go back to the ship. So 3 people went back with them on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing that's tough, but you have to grind through it is as a cruise goes on, you get tired. It's supposed to
Oh
be
yeah.
vacation, but you get tired because you do expend yourself. You stay up later. You're out and you're burning energy. Like Alex said, even if you're just sitting there, your body is working in ways that it usually doesn't work, and you
Right.
get tired. If at all possible, make sure you eat something before you get off the ship, whether it's something small with room service, and that menu is limited, usually on cruise lines, but still will do a lot for you, or get up and go to the buffet. The main dining room is usually open, but get something on your belly. Your body's starting to break it down and make energy before you get off the ship. Because again, I don't know how many times I hear from clients that say, "Yeah, so and so didn't eat, and they didn't. We got off the ship. We weren't off for an hour, and they were
Yep.
feeling bad." And
Yep.
that's because again, you're walking in that Caribbean sun.
Absolutely. And if you listen to our last episode, please go back because I talk about my favorite thing that I like to take from the breakfast buffet line, and that is the banana nut bread. So if you're
Yeah,
going to get off in a Caribbean port or anywhere really hot and humid, fatten yourself up with that delicious banana nut bread. It is so good.
yep,
And yeah, Derek's right. Eat something healthy that morning. And even if you're not hungry, kind of force yourself because you are going to really need that throughout the day.
that's right, exactly right. A few other tips. Alex and I have a lot of tips to share, but something else I'll share. People always ask, when I go on a cruise, should I book an excursion for every single day? When we're at the port of call. We wanted to visit this port of call, and it takes research. It does. If you're going to Freeport, Bahamas, if you look it up and see what's offered in Freeport, you may say, I'm not going to spend my money there because the next day we're going to Nassau, and I've always wanted to
Right.
go to Atlantis. And so ports of call are most of the time amazing, but there's sometimes if you'll do your research, work with your travel advisor, say, hey, what should I do here? What's the thing to do here? And our example of Freeport, which is an industrial port, when you pull up, there are
Yeah.
cranes moving, crates everywhere. A
It's like
lot of the goods
Progresso.
that come in from Europe go to Freeport. And we might say, you know what? In Freeport, that might be your day. Have you thought about staying on the ship? Which some people like get offended by. Are you serious?
Right.
Stay on the ship. We paid $3,000 for this cruise. There's always something to do off the ship. But it's also neat to see, and Alex and I have talked about this on other episodes, of there's things to do on the ship as well. So when we talk about ports of call, know that there are different offerings off the ship versus on the ship as well. And I think too that a lot of people like to splurge on at least one port of call. This this is the highlight. This is the port of call for the itinerary. I don't care if it's $125 a person to do swimming with dolphins or snorkeling or whatever it is. I'm going to do it, and that is okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all have our favorite ports of call and we all have our favorite things to do when you're in port. And, one of the things that I really like about cruising is as soon as you book your cruise, they will typically always send you like if you book your excursion within 72 hours or
Hmm.
whatever, 48 hours, we're going to give you a 10% discount. So, even if you're like, I do not want to get off this ship in this place where I see a bunch of shipping containers and all that, a lot of times in pretty much any port, they're going to offer a really cheap excursion, maybe $40, $50. Not in Alaska. You'll never find that in Alaska, but in the Caribbean, you'll find it. And it might be like a city bus tour that's an hour. But go ahead and do that. If you don't want to spend a couple of $100s, go ahead and do the bus tour because at
Yeah,
least you're getting to see the country or the island where you're at and you get to see it on a budget. And I know in Progresso, really kind of one of my not my favorite places to go, but it's
yeah,
definitely really fun. It's the longest pier in the world. And you
yep.
might think, no way, Costa Maya, that is the longest pier in the world. I hate that walk. Well, let me tell you, if you've ever been to Progresso, and they really only go there on the really, really short day
Yeah,
sailings,
4 or 5. Yep, five
yeah,
mostly.
it is the longest pier in the world. And in order to make it to land, you have to take a 10-minute bus ride.
Yeah,
It's wild.
yeah,
But it's fun. Once you get on that bus and it takes you to the mainland, there's going to be a free bus that will take you into the city. And once you make it to the city, there's a ton of shops, there's a beach, there's a ton of restaurants. It's not the most beautiful beach in the world. It's
yeah,
not, Grand Cayman. It's not 7 Mile Beach, but it is a beach and there's a ton of stuff to do. So definitely be open minded when you go to these ports that don't look pretty when you get there. Just know
yeah,
that once you get on land, it is generally pretty nice and
yeah.
fun.
And after all, is that not the same about the places we live? There are
Yeah,
places I live. If you were to come to my hometown, if you saw some of it, you'd be like, man, you live in a dump, And then you
right.
turn the
Same.
corner, and we've got Spring River, and we've got mountains and stuff like that. So it's like that everywhere you go, for sure. Just remember that. I also want to touch on this. We've talked about this before in previous shows, but it fits into this episode. Ports of call and booking your excursions and things like that. You should always look and book ahead if you're really interested in something. After all, you've paid thousands of dollars to visit the port of call. People go back and forth. Should I buy the excursion before? We would really love it. This is what we want to do, but we have 6 people, and it's going to be $450 if we book this excursion.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, you should book it before. And the question always comes up: should I go through my cruise line? Should I go outside of my cruise line? The answers to that question vary based on the port of call that you're at. Always take things like the security level. The United States government issues a security level for every country in the world. Look at that security level. If it's a place that's known to have more danger or crime, maybe there's been a small increase in crime the last several months, and you want to know that you're going to be safe, to have that reassurance. Maybe you book through the cruise line, and that's totally fine. Cruise lines have done a much better job, honestly, the last several years. The big stigma, especially pre-pandemic, was you would book an excursion with the cruise line. Let's say that you booked a catamaran that had 3 snorkel stops. Sounds great, but the catamaran holds 95 people. That's not good. That was has always been the stigma, and I think they're doing better. I really do think they're doing better and trying to find smaller, more mom and pop, but trusted agencies to provide some of these experiences. But Alex, I know we've talked about this before: booking with the cruise line, booking independently. Look at both based on the port of call, right?
Absolutely. And I want to point out, as Derek and I, Derek's got a lot of followers on YouTube and on their Island Time Facebook page. I've got, quite a few
A
followers as
lot.
well. People, this is no lie. If I check my messages on Facebook, probably twice a week, I will have a local tour operator in one of the one of the ports of call, reach out to me and say, "Hey, I follow your page, great content, same story every time. Would
Yeah,
love to work with you. Here's pictures. Here's my website." Let me tell you, I vet these people so much before I tell my audience, hey, you have to book with XYZ in Roatan or whatever.
yeah,
And let me tell you, and this is a shameless plug, I don't get paid for this. I do get to
yeah,
go on these shore excursions for free, but
yeah,
um, and actually, I personally reached out to this organization because I've used them before. Resort for a Day.
yeah.
They are a wonderful, highly vetted company. They have incredible reviews. If you go to resortforaday.com, go to their page, you put in your cruise line, the ship, your sailing, it'll tell you all of the all-inclusive resorts that they do. And what they're really popular for is they sell what they call a day pass, and it gives you an opportunity to hang out at a resort for a day. That's
Yeah.
all-inclusive and really, really incredible. If you use code Alex the Cruiser, you get $5 off per person. Derek and I, on our group cruise on the MSC Seascape in November of 2025, holler at us if you want to go. We've got over 100 cabins booked, and we're super excited. We're going to have a big resort for a day pass with our people that are traveling with us. So
That's right.
let us know if you want to go on that group cruise. We're super excited. But Resort for a Day is one of the non-cruise line operators that I highly trust.
That's right. That's right. And it's the research. You found that via researching. And Resort for a Day is a company that I've used multiple times. Always had a good experience. But do your research based on where you're going. You'll find very quick, especially in today's world, is this a place where maybe I need some help? It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
get around, maybe, or there's 7 ships in port that day. Research that as well. If you have 7 ships in port, I want to book my excursion early. Otherwise, what you want to do is going to be sold out, and you're going to find whatever's left over. Not saying it won't be fun, but it's not going to be the top choice. The top choices sell out. And so, so much to think about, so much to consider on port days, but they really are special. And one thing that we've seen as well over the last couple of years is ships from U.S. home ports trying to go east, trying to go west, making sure that cruisers have the option to do different itineraries. You've seen Royal Caribbean, even from Galveston, go as far east as Perfect Day at Coco Cay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exciting as well. So the offerings are there most definitely. Alex, when you're looking for your cruises, you and I both cruise a lot. Certain itineraries based on what ports are being visited are more expensive than others. In a year's time or a 2 years time frame, how many times would you pay to take maybe that better itinerary when you could go on a different itinerary and save money? Again, you and I are cruising 6 and 8 times a year. If you cruise once a year, maybe you choose the expensive itinerary. But if I choose the cheaper itinerary, am I still going to have about as much fun, or am I not going to have fun? How much should someone look at these itineraries and decide how much money they're going to spend when booking their cruise?
Let me tell you, I am somebody who is always comfortable doing the same thing. I love going to Cozumel, and I always say Cozumel because everyone probably just roll their eyes. They're like, "Oh, why? Why do you want to do the same thing every time?" But let me tell you, as I'm growing my audience, and Derek, you guys just got back from Europe on the Sun Princess. I'm also trying to broaden my horizon a little bit on these
Yeah.
different ports of call. And I did book a 2-week cruise on the Venezia,
Oh,
leaving out of Port Canaveral January 12th through the 26th, I believe. It's going to 8 stops. And guess what? I have never been to any of these 8 stops before. So it's a Journeys cruise. It's got, Lee, your cruise director, my absolute favorite cruise
Mm.
director of all time. I am excited. And let me tell you, I'm not going for $100. I didn't get $100 balcony like I do when I go on cruises out of Galveston because I go to the casino. I paid $3,000 for 2 weeks in a balcony. Solo cruise, by the way. So do that. If you go on 2 cruises a year, go to a comfortable one, go out of
Yeah.
Galveston, just a quick little
Sure.
whatever, but also challenge yourself like Derek and Amanda do. They always try to go somewhere new. Now we all like our comfortable cruises.
Yeah.
Derek and Amanda, they also just went on the Breeze a couple of months
Yep.
ago.
Yep.
I'm going on the Jubilee again, same ports of call, same ship. But let me tell you, there's so much to see out there. There really is. And Derek, how far out can you book a cruise? If I were to call you right now and say, I want to go on a big cruise, but how far out can I book in advance right now so I
Yeah.
could pay this thing off before I go? And our listeners on here might be a little surprised to hear how far out you can actually book right now.
Yeah. You can book until the first half of 2026 right now,
Crazy.
which is insane. And those big cruises that you're talking about, Alex, like the cruise you're going on that goes to some of these, I mean, I'll say remote, but these smaller islands that don't allow a lot of cruise ships to come.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing, if you watch Island Time, I report on that all the time. These local residents, some of them are voting, hey, we want 2 ships a week. That's all we want. We don't want one a day.
Yeah.
And so it makes it tougher. But one thing when you're looking at ports of call is to look out in advance. Those cruises, as we've pointed out, like the one Alex is going on, it's going to all the saints. Alex will be a saint by the time he gets back.
Can't wait.
uh, look far in advance. Look late 2020, 2025. Look 2026. That gives you a ton of time. We can do the math on what the payment every week or every month would be. You'd be surprised. But that's a great way to find an itinerary that you like, a cruise that may be a little bit more on the expensive side, but there's no way you would book it 6 months out. It'd be too expensive. You couldn't pay all that. A year out, same thing. But when it's 2 years out, you have time to pay for it. And like I said, the schedules for cruise lines for the remainder of 2026 should be out in the next 6 or 8 weeks. And so, Alex, that's a great tip when looking at ports of call. You've always wanted to go to Antigua. You've always wanted to go to St. Thomas and St. Martin. But they're just too expensive. They're too far south. I just can't do it. Look in advance. Let's make your deposit and let's see what the math is to get you paid off. That's an excellent point.
Absolutely. And two things, when I was booking this cruise, I always said, I'm going to go on a big treat yourself cruise in December, January, February. Really want to go to Europe, but those itineraries, they're not really cruising that time. So I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what can I do? Do I go out to Galveston or Long Beach and pay more for like a suite and really have a fun time? But I spent a couple of days. And I didn't have Derek to do this for me because Derek and Amanda, when I booked this, they were in Europe and I definitely did not want to bug them. But
We would
I
have
looked at, oh yeah, absolutely. One of the things, and I don't think I told you this, one of the cruises, because I've told you, I really want to branch out and check out other cruise lines. One of the itineraries I was looking at was a 15 night, and this would have only been an extra probably $1,000. So it would have been 4,000, which I can't justify
yeah,
$4,000. I
yeah.
can't. I'm going to Asia if I've got $4,000. But it was going to be a reposition cruise from New York. It's going to hit all the islands that I'm going to, all the Saints, all the Virgin Islands, and it was on the Norwegian Prima, and it was the
Yeah.
reposition cruise from New York to Galveston.
Wow.
And I was going to get to
Yeah.
Galveston and just take a shuttle to Houston and fly back to Fort Worth. But Derek, I
Yeah.
just couldn't do it. I know it's easy to say, oh man, it was just an extra $1,000, but
Yeah.
I just could not justify it.
Yeah.
But and the second thing about ports of call, I don't know if you do this. I'm assuming you do because you are a big cruising nerd like me, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But before your cruise, do you ever go to like Cozumel cruise port schedule? And I'm like, okay, I'll be there on October 31st.
Yeah.
And I like to see what ships are going to be in port that day. I do that on every sailing. And I'm like, because I want to see if there's going to be a ship I've never seen before. Like I've never seen the Icon of the Seas.
Yeah.
And I was hoping on this next cruise that I'd be able to see the Icon, but she's not going to be there. But when I was looking at what ships are going to be in my ports of call on my January cruise, there's only like maybe one or two ships each time. And this goes back to what you were just talking about. These islands and these ports of call, they do not want to be flooded with tourists. They want just enough to help these locals make a living, but
Yeah.
they want to keep it private and they just don't want it bombarded. They don't want it to be like a Nassau where there's 8 ships in port and there's 20,000 visitors every
Literally.
single day. And so think about that too. Like do your research.
Yeah.
Please do your research. There is a cruise out there for you. I promise.
Yeah. And it's worth calling out if you're one of those people where you pull up to Cozumel and you just look outside and there's 7 ships there and you think I'm not even going out. I'm not going to fight the
Yeah.
people. Or you go to Nassau and literally they set records all the time. I think right now their record is around 27,000 passengers in a day. They celebrate that. They
That's
celebrate it.
more than my town.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's if you are looking for that experience where you show up to your port of call and you're the only ship there, you walk off the ship and you're not standing in a line for 45 minutes to get a taxi. There's a row of 30 cars. Take your taxi.
Hmm.
You go to the beach and it's not, hey, let's fight. There's no loungers left. There's no umbrellas left. Uh, Look far in advance and look at some of these ports of call. And again, the price point is a little bit higher, but those things may be valuable to you. So you don't mind paying for those things. And Alex, I'll add this. I'm a cruise nerd too. There's a lot of people who check those cruise schedules and they hope and they pray when they're in Cozumel, there's only 2 ships there or there's only 3 ships there.
Yes,
But I like to see the ships. I'm like, sweet,
me
there's
too.
going to be 7 ships there. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see the ships.
Yeah, exactly. And on my next cruise, I have become, and it's just so weird. And I'm just going to say it. I've become friends with one of the captains on the Carnival Dream, and we tag each other and stuff, on Instagram. And it's so cool because the only 2 ships that are going to be in Cozumel that day are the Jubilee and the Carnival Dream. And I was like, hey, man, just like me and you, Derek, I've never met you, but I talk to you
Yeah.
every week. We always record an episode. Never met you. And it's the same with Captain Nick. Like, I've never met him before. And I was like, hey, we're going to be in port at the same day. I was like, we should meet up. He's like, oh, port days are really busy for them because they do admin work. But he's like, let me know when you're there and I'll come out and say
Oh,
hi.
man.
And I'm like, that is so cool.
It
Like,
is.
I am such a nerd, man. Like, when it comes to cruising, like, you want to know how much of a nerd and a geek I am about cruising? This morning, I went to CVS to pick up some medicine, and I went to the school supply section because school's starting for
Oh,
everybody.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
picked up two poster boards. Like the big
Yeah.
poster boards that your kids would use for school. My cabin is strategically in an area where the bridge is one deck above me, and I'm like 2 cabins away from the bridge. And so I'm going to get my permanent marker and make a sign that says, hey, Captain, can I honk the horn? And
Yeah.
you know what? Probably going to say no. They're not going to let some cruise nerd up there to honk the horn. But I hope it gets some attention from them and I can maybe at least go see the bridge.
Yeah.
Like,
So you're
seeing the
saying there's a
bridge
chance.
for you. Yeah. Have you ever seen the bridge? I've never seen the bridge in my life.
No. We've never done like the behind the fun tour where you get to go on the
Yeah.
bridge
Never done it.
or anything like that. It's a secure area, monitored at all times, and they do have different events on there, like the behind the fun tour area. But it's there's not many people that get to make it on. But that is a creative idea, and I'll be honest. If I were a captain, if I were a first officer up there, and I'm over the kind of winglet, and I'm looking, and
Yeah.
I see you out there, I'm probably saying, "Look at that guy," and they know what cabin that is. They know the
Oh,
ship like
sure.
the back of their hand, and literally they could pick up the phone and call you, or
Yeah.
or they could be at your room in 30 seconds. And so
Yeah,
that'd
exactly.
be neat. That is really creative.
So stay tuned for the next episode to see if I made it. I'm actually going to make a little bit of a production about this. I'm going to,
I love it.
try. I'm going to start getting into the vlogs like you do, Derek.
Yeah.
Listen, and I know we're getting kind of short on time here, but
Yep.
my sweet grandparents, they come over at least twice a week, and I catch them up on all of your Island Time episodes, and they're always asking me because I always say, "Do you want to come over and watch the podcast?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, did Derek post a new vlog?" And I'm like, "No, I want you to come see with me. Do you want to come see my podcast?" And they're like, "Yeah. But when's Derek going to post another vlog?" They
There are
love
more
that.
coming. I do have more coming, by the
They
way.
they seriously love that. And
I love
just
that.
last night, we spent an hour and a half watching almost every video on Lee, your cruise director's YouTube channel.
Yes.
They really love living vicariously through
That is
you
awesome.
guys and through Lee. And I'm going to try to get into the vlog space. I'm not
Yeah.
good at it. I feel like
Yeah.
you do, Derek. I know
I
you.
try.
You're like, man, they're so hard. They're so
Yeah.
good. So I'm going to
I
make a
appreciate
little
that.
production about this. Hey,
Yeah.
Captain, can I see or can I honk the horn? And I might make it say like, can I honk the horn on sail away? And then
Yeah.
make another sign that just says, hey, can I honk the horn?
Yeah.
But I'm
That is
really
awesome.
excited. So stay tuned to see, what happens with that.
That is awesome. Well, what a show! Ports of Call. That was fun, and I really do think, Alex, if you've watched any of these episodes, this one here has a lot of tips and tricks. Everyone talks about cruise secrets. What's your cruise
Mm-hmm.
secret? Alex and I don't have secrets. We're gonna share it. That's what we do here, and so we hope that you've enjoyed it. Of course, if you're not a subscriber yet to this channel, make sure you're subscribed. Like the video, share it to other people you're cruising with, friends and family. Say, hey, take a look at this. We need to watch this before we visit our ports of call. But Alex, I had fun today, and I can't wait to see your experiences next week as you come back and share your adventures on your cruise.
Absolutely, man. I just love having this podcast with you, and I'm glad that we're reaching people. And let me just say, I think we're a couple of hundred people away from 500 subscribers. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Awesome.
When we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube, I personally will. We're going to have some kind of drawing. We're going to have a giveaway of some sort. I don't
Yeah.
know what that's going to be, but it's not going to be like a rubber duck.
Yeah.
It's going to be something. It'll be something cool, like maybe a swag bag from the Port of Galveston, or
Yeah.
something really fun. And so, if you haven't subscribed, it doesn't cost a nickel. We're never
Yeah.
going to ask you for money at
Yeah.
all. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
So just hit that subscribe button and give us a follow. And guys, we really, really appreciate you guys tuning in every week. It's been so fun. And so with
It
that,
is.
thank you for listening and watching the Cruisers Podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Derek. Bye, everyone.
Bye.